Whenever I see any of the doll houses in Sims 4, I can't help but think about how completely unrealistic they look. Why on earth are they this big? At first glance, it makes no sense when you compare it to real life. Or does it? What if the size actually matches up perfectly? Sure, the dollhouse only takes up 2 tiles, which doesn't sound too bad when you say it like that. But holy guacamole, this thing is huge. Like, just look at it. It's massive. Surely the average dollhouse isn't anywhere near this large, right? I mean, we've all seen the memes. The objects in The Sims 4 are comically large, it's ridiculous. So I have to ask, are distances and object sizes in The Sims 4 completely nonsensical or weirdly true to life? I want to take a moment and thank the sponsor of today's video, Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming is my favorite place to buy video games. It's easily the cheapest place, and there's tons of different games or DLC to look through. If you're looking to add more games to your collection and want to support the channel, then take a look at Instant Gaming through my link in the video description. Your support means I can keep asking questions like, what Sims 4 world is the richest with no extra cost to you? Let's get to the good. First things first, you and I need to be on the same page about measurements. Some of you might be used to thinking in miles. Maybe you're like me and stick to kilometers. Or maybe you prefer the classic banana for scale. There are tons of ways to measure distance, so let's clear this up right away. In game, we've got the grid in build by mode. You can toggle it on or off with G on your keyboard, or cycle through placement modes with left trigger or L2 on console. And as most of you know, this grid is our main measuring tool for spacing in The Sims 4. Thankfully, the hardest part has already been done by some brilliant community members. Big thanks to Ronaldo Scotty, who, building on the original work of Sam and Bean, put together a super handy measurement calculator. Thanks to that, we know that one tile in The Sims 4 equals roughly 0.81 meters by 0.81 meters in real life. If you want to be extra precise, it's actually about 1 meter equals 1.23 tiles. For this video, I'll be rounding that up or down, since the true number would make things unnecessarily messy for me to, say, but I'll still pop the exact conversion up on the screen. So pay attention to that if you want to see the true numbers. Now, we'll be sticking with the metric system for all of this since it's the most common worldwide. Meters it is, okay? You'll see other measurements on screen too. I think we gotta start off with distances. Do they make sense in The Sims 4? Do they compare at all to real life? In real life, a short distance could be something like walking across a room, roughly 2 meters. A medium distance, like heading down the street, might be about 650 meters. And a long distance might be going around your neighborhood, and that would be closer to 3 kilometers. I don't know about you, but I find distance easier to digest when we talk in terms of time. A short distance is under a minute, a medium distance is about 8 minutes, and a long distance works out to be 36 plus minutes. Where do those numbers come from? The average human walking speed is about 5 kilometers per hour. To figure out how long it takes to walk 3 kilometers, you divide the distance by the speed. 3 divided by 5 equals 0.6 hours. Convert that to minutes, 0.6 times 60, and you get 36 minutes. Now, let's compare that to The Sims. Since the in-game clock doesn't give us seconds, we'll say 1 in-game minute is a short distance. That's about 2 tiles, which works out to 2 meters. It's not perfect, but it's pretty comparable. This made me wonder, could we actually figure out a Sim's walking speed? That would help a lot in understanding these distances, especially because Sims don't just walk. If there's something far enough away, they'll jog, which complicates things. And to be quite honest, the idea of making them walk back and forth forever just to count tiles sounds like torture. To figure out their walking speed, I wanted them to walk the longest stretch of tiles they could before they would start jogging. It turns out a Sim starts jogging at 16 tiles. I had my Sim walk exactly 15 tiles and timed it. That took 7 in-game minutes. To calculate their walking speed, I had to convert 15 tiles equals about 12.19 meters, and 7 in-game minutes is 420 seconds. Divide distance by time, 12.19, divide by 420, and you get 0.029 meters per second. Since 1 meter per second equals 3.6 kilometers per hour, that makes a Sim's walking speed about 0.1 kilometer per hour. That is, that's slower than a snail. Like, seriously, that's very slow. Here's the thing, time in The Sims 4 is compressed. If you've seen my video on Sim lifespans, you already know the game runs on its own version of time, so it's not too surprising that their walking speed doesn't translate to real life. Still, let's put our medium and long distances back into sim terms. That medium distance of 650 meters or 800 tiles would take a sim 6.5 in-game hours. The long distance of 3 kilometers or roughly 3,691 tiles would take them 30 in-game hours. And now you see why I didn't actually make my sim do it. It would have taken forever. So no, Sims travel times aren't remotely comparable to real life. The interesting part would be the fact that the tile system itself is pretty comparable. One tile equals 0.81 meters. Real life floor tiles are actually 0.9 to 1 meter, so it's close enough to work as a scale for rooms and objects. The problem is walking speed. Sims move far too slowly for the scale to feel realistic. I guess that could have been done on purpose. Perhaps it's designed to keep animation smooth and the game playable, not to match real-world physics. What does this mean for gameplay? Sims aren't meant to travel realistically. Their walking speed and the compressed time are designed for fun and convenience, not to match real life, which, we know, right? It also explains why we don't ever see players actually timing out long walks. It would be unbearable, and let's be honest, why would anyone else do that? I feel like this is the first time ever anyone had ever wanted to, or even thought about doing that. In practical terms, short distances feel fine, but anything beyond the lot or a small neighborhood is basically teleportation territory. Sims will jog, and loading screens can handle the rest. Although, I don't think we should have loading screens to visit our neighbors, just saying. Yeah. In other words, general travel in the game is a blend of realism for close distances and game travel for everything else. The tile grid system works great for building and object placement, but travel is intentionally fun over factual. Something I find even more interesting than distance is building, specifically recreating real-life houses in The Sims 4. I've done it before, and I'm sure you've either tried it or, be honest, you've thought about it. But if your experience is anything like mine, the results never feel exact. The sizing is always a little off. The furniture never seems to fit quite the way it should. I have to be realistic here and admit this is probably a user error, something I'm doing wrong. That said, it is possible to make builds that line up with real life dimensions. Thanks to the grid system, you can recreate real world floor plans in-game with a pretty decent level of detail. Let me show you. Take this house floor plan, I can map it out in The Sims 4 almost perfectly. With the measurement calculator, it's straightforward and very doable. But here's where things get tricky. Height. There isn't a vertical grid, so we have to work with estimates. In real life, a standard interior door is about 6'5" or 2 meters. Sims themselves are tall, but not that tall. Some players who pulled their Sims into Blender found their rigs to be between 6'1" and 6'5", which is just under 2 meters. When I tested this in-game, I noticed something interesting. On an unfinished wall, the markings seemed to line up with the floor grid, which gave me a way to measure height. Using this method, Sims stand just over 2 tiles tall, about 2.4 tiles or 2 meters, which matches up perfectly with that 6'5" estimate. If that's true, then a short door is 3 tiles tall, about 2.44 meters or 8 feet. That means a short wall is 4 tiles high, roughly 3.25 meters or just under 11 feet. Comparing that to Canada's standard wall height of 8 feet, 2.4 meters or 3 tiles, you can see that everything in Sims 4 is scaled a little taller than in real life. Out of curiosity, I checked the taller wall options, and here's the weird part. The medium and tall wall don't follow the same pattern. You can see where the short wall was and where they've added the height. The pattern on the wall is actually scaled smaller. I had to get creative and I stacked some doors. That way you can figure it out, kind of. That tall walls are about 7 tiles high or 5.7 meters, almost 19 feet. Going back to our floor plan, this means the walls in Sims 4 are consistently taller than their real-life counterparts, which would suck if you're dealing with a vertical design. For builders though, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, since it doesn't quite impact recreating a floor plan the same way the grid system does. I say this is an ideal scenario, despite the height being a little bit off. It means builds can be scaled and replicated. It's just a matter of finding objects that match. Talking about objects, let's go back to the dollhouse. Is this realistic? Honestly, this is one of those things that gets complained about all the time. I get it. I want my sim kids to have a dollhouse too, but come on, Maxes. This thing is large and in charge. How are you supposed to fit it into a normal build without carving out half the room for it? The kicker, every single dollhouse is this big. Every single one. Would it really have been that hard to give us a one-tile version? Like a little short one? Anywho, some objects really make you go, huh, does this actually make sense? That's why today we're comparing several in-game objects to their real-life counterparts. First up, the couch. In real life, a 3-seater is about 84 to 90 inches long, 35 to 38 inches deep, and 30 to 36 inches tall. That's about 3 tiles long, 1 tile deep, and 1 tile tall in Sims 4. And wouldn't you know it, the in-game couch lines up pretty closely. It's 3 tiles by 1 tile, though it doesn't quite stretch edge to edge. Now, back to the dollhouse. Fun fact, out of all of them, only one actually spells it dollhouse, with a space in between the 2 words. The more you know. Anyway, all the dollhouses technically take up 2 by 1.5 tiles, but the play zone balloons that to 3 by 2. Height-wise, most hover around 2 tiles, except one that's just over a single tile. In metric, that's around 1.8 meters wide and 1.2 long, or with the play zone closer to 2.8 by 1.9. I had to figure out what sort of dolls Sims play with because that stuff matters. You know what I mean, Jellybean? Dollhouses aren't all the same size, unlike in The Sims. It does really matter what doll you're planning on playing with. I wanted to choose one that would best represent what they're going with these dollhouses. That's why I decided to check out Barbie's Dream House. I did my best to look for a 2014 version. I thought that would be a nice comparison. Unfortunately, I couldn't find one. I don't know if they made one that year or something. So we're just gonna compare with a recent one. And shockingly, the numbers are surprisingly close. The current dream house is 1.57 meters wide, 0.7 long, and 1.14 meters tall. Basically 2 by 1 tiles. So, as oversized as the Sims dollhouse feels, it's actually pretty on par with real life ones. Honestly, I always thought that these things were hilariously big, but nope. Turns out the Sims version is bang on. Moving on to another one of the 4 horsemen of oversized objects, the play tent. In real life, a kid's tent is around 1 meter by 1 meter and 1.3 meters tall, so 1 by 1 tiles. But in The Sims 4, the tent is 2 by 2 tiles and over 3 tiles tall, double the footprint and way taller. And the funniest part, you would think it was scaled up so adults could go inside to play. Nope. Adult Sims stand outside the tent to play. Make it make sense. It's time for the real beast, the Whipped Dream Cupcake Machine. This thing takes up 3 by 3 tiles, 2.4 meters square. For context, an average oven is less than 1 meter wide and deep and under 1 meter tall. So yeah, the Sims decided we needed a massive device exclusively for cupcakes. And for years, it was the only way to make them. Absolutely ridiculous. And then we've got the classic offenders, the telescope and the microscope. Both are comically massive, way beyond their real-life counterparts. I will admit the original base game telescope is called a backyard observatory. Technically, that makes sense. Observatories are big. But why did we not have a small one from the start? It took them 8 years until June 2022 to finally add a smaller telescope to the base game. Still waiting on a smaller microscope though. When it comes to objects, sometimes the scale is surprisingly accurate, and other times it's doubled, tripled, or just plain silly. And sure, Sims 4 is cartoony, so maybe that's part of the charm. But I can't help thinking a lot of these oversized items exist just to make animations work, which honestly kind of sucks. I'm glad they function, but I'm also annoyed that ugly, clunky animations end up dictating the design. What does this all mean for scaling in Sims 4? Well, on one hand, the grid system makes it possible to recreate real-life builds with pretty solid accuracy. You can line up a floor plan tile for the meter, and it'll generally check out. That's why building in this game can feel so satisfying, because it does translate surprisingly well to reality. On the other hand, objects and animations don't always match the same level of realism, especially the animations, although we did not really talk about that in this video, so. I'm gonna guess that this was done, to a certain degree, on purpose, despite it being frustrating as heck. In theory, bigger objects leave space for Sims to route properly, animations to line up, and interactions to fire without breaking. I think I'd be okay with this if that was always the case. And to put it simply, it's not. Some objects are huge for no apparent reason or because they're cartoonishly large, like on purpose, to be funny. but it's not funny. And it matched the style that they were going for with this game. Sometimes scaling in Sims 4 makes perfect sense, and other times is ridiculous, as we found out. The end result is a game where you can both faithfully recreate your real life living room and also own a cupcake machine that's taller than your fridge. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe for future videos like this one. Until then, stay happy, healthy, and hydrated. Bye!